We're going to be getting into our first review. We're going to be discussing Euphoria. Euphoria is the huge show that is on HBO, starring Zendaya. It is, reading an article, it is the most tweeted about show of the decade. So, every time I see it, every time I see it on Twitter, when it was the Sundays, it was even bigger than the Super Bowl. Yeah, it was like people constantly tweeting about it. So,
yeah,
even
it's become it's become follow the story if you're just reading about it on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, so you can almost just watch this show. You can almost feel like a lot of people go like, well, I haven't even seen the show, but I already feel like I've watched it just through people talking about it, and Nate and Cassie and Mandy versus Cassie and Rue and all this other stuff. So, you just kind of feel like I kind of had a general sense of what was kind of going on even before I even saw the show. And I always been meaning to watch it, and we'll get into like a lot of the controversy that surrounds the show as well. But yeah, I been meaning to watch it. Zendaya. It's interesting to see her career kind of rise. All the way when she was on the Disney Channel. Now she's in $1 billion movies. In the Spider-Man. Now she's on a hit critically acclaimed show in Euphoria. So, it's interesting to see kind of how her career is gone. But we'll kind of get into it. So Euphoria, it is about set in high school, dealing with a lot of teenage characters. Now, none of the actors who actually are, just like Hollywood, none of these people who play teenagers are actually teenagers. They're all in their mid-20s. You'll see that there. But it deals with the kind of a lot
of 30. You get 45-year-old Jacob Elordi playing Nate Jacobs.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I'm fucking.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like half of the cast in this. I just keep thinking about Bad Boys 2. It's like, motherfucker, you look 30.
You really think he looks that old? You think he looks like too old to be in high school? I think he still can kind of.
Yeah. Nick is being Nick. He's probably like 25.
No, yeah, he's 24, but I was trying to think if
he's like 20.
I think maybe it's because he's just so tall. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Fucking lurch-looking motherfucker.
So you have the main character here who's played by Zendaya, who's Rue. She's really the main character you follow throughout the series. You're introduced to. She has a very serious drug addiction, drug problem, and that's kind of a current thing with a lot of the different characters in the show. All kind of dabble in drugs and alcohol, as well as sex, and you kind of deal with kind of a lot of their lives there. You also have a character named Jules, who's a transgender girl. She's in there. She's best friends with Rue. And you also see kind of another kind of gang group of girls, Mandy, who's like a head cheerleader at the school.
Maddie.
Oh, Maddie.
Maddie, because that's my favorite. Maddie all day. Bitch. Yeah. I fucking love Maddie. I'm sorry.
Yeah. You have Maddie.
Maddie is played by Alexa Demi. You have Cassie, who's played by Sydney Sweeney. Kat, Barbie Ferreira, and Maud Apatow, who plays Lucy, who is a character that gets nothing to do in the entire first season.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, but they kind of redeem it here in the second season. So we'll go ahead and go through both the first season and the second season, and kind of give our overall general thoughts on the show. I would say the show is very much shot very beautifully. There's lots of very kind of beautiful shots they do, and the look of the stuff. I guess some of it can kind of border on self-indulgent. I think can be considered a little bit of what they do, kind of with some of the shots. But I think a lot of that is kind of very good. And I think a lot of the performances are very good here, and they're very good, especially Zendaya. It really gives her a chance to, stretch. You see, like I said, if you've seen her like in the Disney Channel stuff, it's very much of a departure of the Disney Channel stuff. It's basically what the Disney Channel stars did off screen. Basically, it's just portraying that in, a dramatized fashion, basically. So you kind of have that here, and so I do like that. It's very much different departure for her. So anybody says like a little. It's like, can she act or can she not act? I think this show will maybe change your opinion on that.
This show unequivocally answers that question. Yes, Zendaya is a fucking actor.
Yeah. So you guys, Reese and Jena, have you guys seen the show from the beginning? Okay. And Reese, what were kind of your thoughts kind of on the show watching it?
Season 1 I thought was a lot stronger than season 2. Season 1 kind of focused more on why Rue is so addicted to drugs and kind of her story leading up to where she's at now. I feel like it's one of those shows that's very hard to watch if you've ever been affected by someone who's either done drugs or if you're someone who's had a drug problem before, because it really doesn't glorify it at all. And I know some people have kind of argued that, oh, pretty makeup, Euphoria, it's glorifying drugs. It's really not. I think all of the really self-indulgent scenes kind of speak to why Rue tends to keep going back to this. It's a huge escape for her. It takes all of the pain away and it kind of shows you visually what she's going through when she's actually on a high. And I think that was really interesting because, you can kind of have your apprehensions about people and, their own addictions, but when you actually see why it's happening and why she keeps going back to it, I think it lends a lot of context into her behavior on the show.
Yeah.
Most of the characters I feel like are I kind of go back and forth. Like sometimes they're super unlikable. Like Nate, I still don't like him.
Fuck that dude.
I know, dude.
I was waiting on that dude to get his ass beat
And
the entire first season.
Yeah, first season, like he basically
he became the most evil HBO character since fucking or Ramsay Bolton.
He's insufferable. But that's the thing though, like he's so many, like I'm sure each of us can name somebody we know that's just like Nate. Like the popular guy, he gets away with everything, treats women however he sees fit, and he kind of doesn't really see any real consequences for it until season 2. He finally kind of gets his, but at the end he really still is kind of getting off scot-free for a bunch of other stuff. So it's kind of frustrating to see the way he keeps kind of using, I guess, his privilege to get by, but that's super relatable to real life as well.
Yeah.
And the show is kind of a, when you talk about the drug use in the show, I know the creator of the show, Sam Levinson, he was, a former drug user himself and drug addict. And he brings a lot of that, kind of experience there into the show, him being a, former kind of drug addict there into the show and everything like that. Jena, what were kind of your thoughts there watching the show?
Euphoria, the first season, I didn't even finish it because I was like, ooh, girl. So although I went to an all-girls school, unfortunately, this was triggering for me because I had a close friend of mine who OD'd and had a really bad drug addiction in high school. And that was my introduction. And she's super clean now. I love you, Sam. You're so amazing. She probably won't ever see this, but just in case she does. But it was just really hard because I really loved her. And I was really scared that something would happen to her. So that was my introduction to the behind the scenes life of what my friends were doing. And it also reminded me of all the wild shit I was doing in high school, which is why I ended up being a teen mom. You know what I mean? And I wasn't big on the drug use, but I feel like the escapism present when it comes to drug addiction and how, whether it's depression or what have you, I felt like no other show has been able to artistically and honestly just in a film medium been able to capture it just so well. Euphoria is, I like it because I'm a very sensual person about the senses, and the showrunners of that show constantly talk about the composition of the show, the lighting that they use in the show, and the reason why it seems kind of fantastical at times or kind of surreal at times. Those are deliberate choices made by the filmmakers and by the cinematographers. And it really does kind of capture how we tend to view ourselves, specifically in this day and age of YouTube and using our phones. We view ourselves through an outside lens looking back at ourselves, and we create constantly what we think we should look like or how we view ourselves. So it was interesting that this show was able to capture pretty much all of that, crossing generations from drug abuse to escapism to how we view ourselves in a constantly evolving world of technology. I funny enough, my issues with Euphoria, and I knew I was getting old. I was like, fuck, man, I'm getting old, man. Was that I'm tired of actually seeing teenage sex on screen. And for me, it's more so just about like adults watching, because technically we're watching teen porn. Whether the actors are adults or not, it's still simulating teen sex. And I feel like, unfortunately, in America, we're disgusting, and the top watch porn is underage teen porn. And I feel like it's just kind of, whether they meant to or not, it still plays into that kind of like industry. I was a little bit like, I'm just tired of seeing underage kids fuck on screen. Sorry, that doesn't get me going. But I also understand that this, again, is, I'm not the demographic. I'm not a 16, 17-year-old kid in high school. I'm in my mid-30s. So, but season 1 was really heavy. It triggered me a lot because I could relate. Folks saying that they didn't know, like, what high school is this? I was like, girl, this is every high school. What was you doing? You must not have been with the cool kids because you didn't know what was going on. But girl, I did. And funny enough, I tend to like season 2 a little bit better because it goes outside of Rue. Rue is really heavy. I echo Reese. I've dealt with family members of drug addiction. I overcame drug addiction myself. So it was just really heavy. I had to go to therapy. Like, I couldn't really watch season 1. It was really heavy for me. And I was like, okay, girl, I love you, but Rue, girl. Yeah. Season 2, I feel like they were able to find that good balance of storytelling and still keeping it rooted in like pulling from real life experiences. And then we got to know more of the characters and the world and how her actions affected other people. And I feel like this season, I also like the theme of this season, which was really about empathy, and really showing empathy to others and understanding that not everybody's a bad person, that these are still kids. I like the fact that they really drove that home. These are still kids. They're still teens with underdeveloped brains trying to figure out adult things that we ourselves have trouble navigating. And we're grown. So I feel like in this season...
For Nate Jacobs. Fuck that.
Right? In this season... It was more so just like, okay, yeah, we're good with like creating this world and bring you into it. But now we're really going to ground you. And we're really going to show you like the consequences of Rue's actions, the consequences of Fez's actions on his younger brother. That shit was sad as fuck. You know what I mean? Like, it really just like drove it home of like, okay, it's kiki, it's cute, it has all this surreal composition or whatever, but we're going to ground it and let you know that these are real people, you know what I mean, who are going through these issues. And at the end of the day, they're going to have to sleep in the bed that they made. You know what I mean? So I really like how season 2 is really, it is a true like season 2. Most season 2s of shows kind of falter off and are trash, but this one was actually pretty strong. And I could sit through this season because it was like, all right, whew, like I got through the heavy shit. And I really actually felt like I was friends with these folks. That's why I'm Team Maddie all day. I was so glad she beat her ass, bitch.
I love Maddie.
Yeah, it's like I was like that other friend baby. It was like, Maddie, beat her ass!
Yes! And that's what the whole girl did.
There's Maddie now! There's her ass!
Right?
Maddie,
play the whole first season, this season, she never had a voice. She never had a voice. That play was her. And I that character I felt, because I was her in high school. I never told my story. I always had people dumping on me. You know what I mean? Emotional dumping was constant. And it was like I could never talk about any of the things I was going through. And when she did that play, I felt like the 16-year-old Jena was like, yes, like, let's call you bitches
Which
out.
when we get to that play at the season 2, it's the levity that this show has ever done. It's like the funniest that the show, with the character Ethan, who is playing, well, everybody.
So you bring up that the demographic of the show is about teenagers, and you are watching teenagers, basically have sex and go through all these things. So I'm curious, so the demographic for this show, do you think it's a situation because dealing with all these major themes of sex and drugs and addiction and violence, so the demographic which this show is about, do you think that they can watch this show?
Oh, most definitely. I'm gonna need. Okay, America, I'm talking to you. Hi, girl. How are you doing? Not too well, as it seems. Like teenagers have sex. Teenagers do drugs.
Yeah,
I don't know what world people are.
it would be more
don't do
if you
these
didn't
things.
address it in a show like this.
Exactly. And then we had My So-Called Life in the 90s. We had was it Party of Five? This is not a new
Party of Five.
formula.
Yes.
This is not a new formula, guys. Like, this is not new. So the fact that everyone's and what was the show right before this that I did not watch that they said we're teaching kids
13 Reasons
suicide?
Why?
Yes.
Oh, 13 Reasons Why.
Yeah.
This show gets right everything that show got wrong.
Exactly.
Because 13 Reasons show is just purely exploitative. That is just made to cause controversy, to get people to fucking watch the show and talk about it.
Yeah.
Have any actual intentions. And that show is fucking dangerous. They spent an entire season trying to build sympathy for the serial rapist.
Listen, I didn't finish watching that either because it was just no. And I feel like with Euphoria, teens need to watch this show because the way that these topics are handled, the way that they're written, this is if I was a teacher, this would actually be a semester, and I would sit down with students and unpack all the things in a therapeutic setting so that we can actually process all the things that are going on because people are going to find something they can relate to. But personally, I think this is made for 16 and up, 15 and up. It's also just tone deaf because not every teenager has a great upbringing. So the fact that most young folks have sex at 12, 13, that's the average actually in America. It's very young. So this idea that kids aren't doing these adult things, you're just literally living in denial, which,
Yeah, the idea that, kids, they get exposed to all of this shit in high school. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think this is interesting too with the idea you bring up about the demographic and if they should be watching it because we're regressing in so many ways politically of what we want our kids exposed to. I feel like we're going back to the goddamn 80s. And it's more so just you guys learn that the more you restrict, the more they're going to want to learn about it. So instead of restricting education and access to these type of shows and these type of topics, we should be creating an environment where this can be discussed in a way that's actually mature, in a way that these folks can really actually, like I said, process and unpack and really just understand that their consequences have actions and have empathy. I think season 2 is a beautiful display of empathy. I really felt for these characters. I really did, even though they're flawed as hell. Even Nate, seeing his dad. Imagine that's your daddy, girl. Bye. Yeah. How you not gonna turn out crazy? You already a white male. So
worst character, even the worst, most psychopathic character on the show, Nate Jacob. He is given the opportunity for us as an audience to empathize with him, which. Fuck that guy, but I understand.
Yeah. He doesn't have. Nate didn't. He didn't have the layout. Literally, if you really look at Nate's character arc, who really taught him how to be a man? What was his examples? You know what I mean? And that's something that also I'm glad they brought up in that show of masculinity and basically the sins of the father. You know what I mean? If that show daddy, he out here messing around with underage girls. You know what I mean? He ain't never there for them, never show him no love, then how do you expect him to actually express that? Yeah. You know what I mean? He doesn't have the blueprint. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's he is an asshole, but the apple don't fall far from the tree. And then I love how they even did his dad's backstory. How his dad, it's you see the cycle
Yeah.
You know what I mean? See the cycle continuing. I thought that was really like, it's simple. Again, like Batman, these things are simple, but sometimes simplicity works.
Let's see. Marley Loves Film says, I was a square. I didn't do drugs in high school. Um,
Same, yeah,
Good
same,
job. Good job.
I
Good.
think
same
Don't
really.
do
I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink
Me neither.
till my 20s. I didn't like have sex until I was like 21.
Yeah.
So I'm with you, Marley. I was a square.
In
I also
my
had
defense, my
parents with
drugs was
PTSD.
Jamba Juice add-ins. Actually, no, for
my
real. They
drug
were fine.
my
I don't
drug
know.
was my drugs were fucking Monster Energy and Nutella.
Yes,
That was my drug.
yes. And I smoked weed. I got introduced to weed in 10th
Well, that's
grade.
not a drug.
My brain
It's
was still
natural.
developing.
Fair.
yeah, I guess, I mean, I didn't drink till I was in college. Didn't do that. Did smoke weed. Well, I think I did it once in high school and then maybe once in college. So yeah, that's probably the extent. I didn't have sex in high school either. Not until I got into college, I
Oh,
guess.
we're squares. Ew.
Where it was like Marla just films. My drugs was movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
dude.
makes sense what I looked like in high school. Like no one was checking for me in high school.
Yeah.
Listen, Reese, I'd have been checking for your fine ass in high school. Get the fuck out of here. Listen.
I looked nothing like I do now. I promise you.
I promise you, honey, you in high school is just as beautiful as you are now, okay? So,
Aw, you're sweet.
you know,
I'll have
people
to
are
find
losers in
pictures.
high school.
Let's see. Allie said that he didn't drink. He didn't start drinking till college, 19.
Same.
Yeah, and Marley says, yeah, he said my drugs was movies. Wow. Well, good for you,
Yeah,
man.
my drugs was sex. I'm not gonna cap. That's why I feel for. Oh my, I cannot believe I'm forgetting my second favorite character of all time. Oh my god, I feel like such a bad fan. My homegirl, my thick homegirl, who
Oh,
was
Kate.
doing all the
Oh,
Cat.
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 yeah.
Cat,
I was actually for real. I was
who's
Cat.
played incredibly by Barbie Ferreira in the first season.
Yes,
In
I had
season 2,
They did her so dirty
There-
this season.
they did.
they give her nothing to do. They just completely regressed that character and just made her, and like didn't even give her like an empathetic window the same way that they
Well,
that is owed to a lot of her feuding with Sam Levinson during the production of that.
we'll go character by character here. Let's see what we think about them and everything like that. Just discuss some other kind of controversy with the show. Do you all think that the nudity is excessive? Is it?
Really?
Yeah.
I don't
Anybody?
think it's excessive, but I don't think it's necessary either.
It's I think it dances that fine line between it is like a little much. It's like not really necessary, but I don't find it excessive.
Yeah, like it's there.
And by all accounts, at least Sam Levinson, when he's like been asked by some of the actors on the show. I know Minka Kelly talked about refusing to do a nude scene. I know Sydney Sweeney, she talked about Sam Levinson asking him to cut out some scenes, and he said, "Okay."
Yeah. So.
I don't.
I was gonna say. So if you're coming into the show, thinking like, okay, I'm gonna see a lot of hot women get naked and all that stuff. Really, you seeing mostly dick. It's mostly you're gonna see most of the.
You're seeing way more dicks than you are in.
Yeah. So you're seeing a lot of fake dicks more
Just-
than you are seeing naked women. So I'll tell you that right now. So if you're a guy trying to get into the show, like I heard, yeah.
Are
So
Nerdy.
I don't know if they're fake.
It looks pretty accurate.
I don't think
no,
they're fake.
they said that. I think
I
I was
mean-
reading an article. They said it was fake dick.
I just watched Pam and Tommy. I know what a fake.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think
Yeah,
I.
I don't
now we'll have to talk about. I'm almost done that one.
Yeah, I mean, I actually am here for the male nudity because it turns. I mean, again, I'm a film nerd, film historian nerd. And the nudity is typically women, so it's nice to see the shoe on the other foot for once.
Yeah.
Again, it's also something I have, like, I'll watch it and I'll be like, oh, but wait, aren't these teenagers? Again, very awkward because if you get aroused, you're essentially getting aroused watching underage kids. So it's like, again, guys, but again, this is nothing new.
I feel like Not progressing. I mean, last year we had Cumberbatch and Bradley Cooper drop dong.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it follows the tradition of what was popularized in the 80s of teen nudity. So it's really not that
Yeah,
different.
that
from
is
what we've
that is
been.
very true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Every
then
slasher film with some titties. So.
and then so like female wise, really the most woman you'll see naked is Cassie. That's pretty much it. Like
Yeah.
Maddie, she only gets nude once, I think, and that's only in the first episode, I think. And then everybody, I can't really name many other females who get naked in the show, or other women, because Kat never gets naked. She doesn't. And then neither does her other friends. Neither does like her other kind of group. They don't either. So really, it's mostly just Cassie, really, and a lot of scenes with her. So you kind of have that. So with Zendaya, so with her character of Rue, like you said, very much like in the second season, you really see how her behavior impacts other people, which I think is really powerful and everything like that. And it really takes more outside the show. And I do love how Zendaya does the narrations of and then shows every character's kind of backstory, so you get their whole kind of why they kind of are the way they are, which is very nice. And a lot of common themes with a lot of these characters is they're either single parent households, or if they do have if they do have two parents, either both of them or one of them is fucked up. So like Maddie's parents, like she's got two parents, but the one dad, all he does all day is just sit on the couch and drinking beer. That's all he does all day. And they're even talking about him in front of him. He's sitting there, she's talking shit about him in front of him. And then it's like, well, he doesn't do all day. All he does is just sit on the couch and drink. And he's just sitting there doing exactly that, drinking beer and doing all this other stuff. So you kind of do see a lot of that, which I do love, that they do explore that, a lot of stuff in the show. And then like they do that with all the characters, which I do think is really great. What are your kind of thoughts on Rue as a character and in the show? Nick, what were kind of your thoughts there?
Okay, Rue as a character, I think with Sam Levinson, because he spoke about a lot in interviews how actually him and how he's kind of processed his youth and his struggle. And I think because of that, with Rue, you can fall in the trap of just being very recent, like he does, I think, with cinematography, but it feels very surreal and is kind of like this palate cleanser for these very serious, very tense subject matters. But I think by Zendaya's performance, she is magnetic, and you see the two episodes that they for her for the Emmys. One is that infamous scene of her just screaming at Fez to open the door, and then in this season, it's her intervention episode, where it's basically just like a GTA 5 through.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I will say with her kind of her family, I wish they did give her sister Storm Reed more to do. I feel like a lot of it is just her crying and just constantly just sad face most of the time. So I really do wish.
I think because I agree with that, but I think it's intentional. This character, just by the nature of what she's going through, she is very, very single. She doesn't really consider what it's doing to her sister until the very few episodes where she's actually so.
Yeah. Reese, what were kind of your thoughts on Rue?
I think it was a really good look at Rue in that she is an unreliable narrator, especially when it comes to her own story. She'll have all of these like fantasies about things with her and Jules, or just her living a life that's different from what she's living currently. And then we flash back to reality again, and we're like, oh, well, we kind of get that sense that we can't really trust her, which is kind of, I think it's a good way to show that she's a flawed character. And at the same time, it kind of puts you in her shoes. Because when you're doing drugs and you're not quite like you don't have your wits about you all the way, you kind of see things in a way that are not accurate, and I think it's good that they actually show that. Because for her drug use is an escape, right? Like for her, she's going back to this because she wants out of her real life, and at one point it seems like she was ready to end everything. So for us to kind of get a glimpse into the way she goes back and forth between what is reality and what isn't is really interesting. Although she is somewhat accurate with everybody else's stories, which is cool to see. Um, Her intervention episode was wild. Like that was, it felt like you were a fly on the wall to something you probably weren't supposed to see. And I think that scene was really effective in that it's a super serious thing, and like it affects so many other people aside from just you. And her reaction to Jules having told her mom about what was happening, and the way she just flips on a dime, because she went from loving Jules to all of a sudden I hate you, even though I don't think she actually meant that. But again, once you're not of your right mind, you kind of say things that aren't accurate or not real. But yeah, it was, even I felt myself kind of getting anxious watching that scene, because it's like it's a confrontation that she's been avoiding, and it's a part of her life that she's been trying to escape from for so long, and finally it all comes to a head, and it's just like, what do you do? And even her mom is just at the point where it's like, okay, well, I have 2 kids, and I have one kid who basically is trying to kill herself, and I have the other kid who wants to live. So at this point, like we've been through the ringer, and if you want to kill yourself, you want to kill yourself, and if you don't, you don't. But I'm gonna take care of this other kid.
Yeah.
And Rue's reaction to that was she's basically like, yeah, that's fair. So it looks like her arc is coming to a point where she kind of has that self-awareness that, yeah, she's so far gone. I think she's still helpable. Like she can still reel it back in if she wants to, but she's realizing now that the responsibility is on her. You can only help someone who wants to help themselves.
Yeah.
So I think near the end of this, now she's kind of figuring out like, yeah, I need to do something different, and it's on me. And I'm pushing away everybody that I love, and it's not going to end well for me if I don't do something. So I think she's finally coming to that realization, which is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good scene. Yeah, her mom just laying in bed eating ice cream and says, "I had to choose between 2 of you. I'm picking her." It's like, oh, just sitting there, eating the butter pecan ice cream. Yeah.
Hey, me that was my other favorite character. I was like, "Amen, mama." As a mother, shit. I will just say this: Rue is the epitome of a Virgo queen. I have a Virgo teenager, and let me tell you, the accuracy is real. No, it really is. Like if y'all, the what they don't talk about, and yeah, I do astrology, whatever. Before it was cool, guys. Okay, I was made fun of before it was cool. But it was interesting how that played into it. I also like Rue because she's non-binary, like myself. I say she casually, but whatever. We don't really care if we're non-binary. He, she, it. We don't give a fuck. But honestly, it was one of those moments where watching Rue's character really I actually didn't like Rue in season 1. I thought Rue was annoying, self-centered. And I felt like it wasn't even the drugs that I feel like the drugs helped confirm the distortion of reality. I feel like Rue already had really extremely low self-esteem. And constant denial, just an avoidance personality. If there was a dictionary definition of avoidant personality, it would be Rue. And so for me, it was like the drugs was just kind of that thing where it's like, I don't want to deal with myself. Literally what it was. Like, I don't want to deal with myself. I don't want to love myself. I don't want to deal with the death of my father. I don't want to deal with the unknown. So it was definitely just all avoidance tactics to the point where it's you checked out so many times thinking that when you came back to reality that everybody would just not act like they weren't there the whole time. Like it was just a perfect portrayal of a teenager, regardless of whether they do drugs or not, who checks out mentally and really doesn't give a shit about anybody else, or doesn't give a shit about their behaviors or impact. They think they can't hurt others, and so on and so forth. Rue and Jules' love story, was one of my favorites out of that show. But yeah, it took me a while to feel empathy with Rue because I didn't. It's like, whatever, bitch. Like, go bye. Like, I'm tired of you.
Yeah, I think, yeah,
Tired of you.
same. And I
Like,
kind of like Rue as a character in the first season at all. I thought she was basically everything that you said, but I think the turning point were the two special episodes that they put out in between season 1 and 2.
Yeah.
The first one, which is just the her and Coleman Domingo as Ali in the diner just talking about addiction, and the second one is with Jules with her therapist, both of which are incredible, and I think the absolute peak of the show.
yeah. It for me, Rue frustrated me again. My daughter doesn't do drugs at all, but it was the same frustration actually
you know
of Virgo's, where it's like, no, my daughter, she's a nerd. We're completely different teenagers. She doesn't do any of that for real, which I'm happy about. And I'm glad she has her own, autonomy. Most teenagers aren't that like, no, I'm not doing it, but it was just like there's so much beyond potential. Like her observational skills and the way she's able to clock and read people. It's like, girl, you have so much more to offer yourself and the people around you that it really like triggered the adult in me, the mom in me. And I felt her mom when she was like, listen, like if I had to make a choice, I'm choosing my other kid because they want to try. You don't want to try anymore. You literally gave the fuck up. And seeing her interactions, like my other favorite scene from season 2 is when old boy, I think he was like in a laundry room or something, and she walked in, and I guess they were talking, and the way she was just so, I know what drug this is, and let me do this drug, and then she got high, and it was like passing out, like, bitch, you are not, you think you about that life, but you're not. So it's just like, I don't know, Rue's character arc from season 1 to season 2. By the end of season 2, I had a lot more empathy for her, and for them, and I also like, I don't know, it just really, it really helped me get to a point with Rue to where I wasn't so frustrated because I loved like the maternal love of like, I love you, I want you to do better with your life. It moved from frustration with this character to being like, okay, I now understand how your brain works. I now understand how you perceive the world. I now understand the internal struggles that you have that you don't really speak on, because that's another thing. Rue doesn't really speak a lot on their issues. Like, they just don't. But by season 2, it's like, okay, I now better understand you. And it seems like you're slowly coming out of your shell. Like how you said, that self-awareness, their self-awareness it shifts from like depreciating like self-criticism to the point where it's like, Jesus fucking Christ, like, do you have any love for yourself at all? To a more grounded balance of, I know I fucked up, but I do deserve redemption. And it was just a very nice transition with that character. So yeah, I told you, Virgo queen, all my Virgos out there, y'all gotta love yourselves. It's imperative that Virgos, man, because when they don't love themselves,
that fucking episode.
Yeah.
That fucking episode where it's just all the like fake influencers just screaming at Kat, love yourself, which is terrifying.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we say Rue is, I think, she is very unlikable, which, I think is a big point of her character. Somebody who is that selfish, who, does do those drugs and does impact these other people. And that episode she does, have with, Coleman Domingo is absolutely, they do the special episodes, is really amazing. And also great job from Coleman Domingo. He's absolutely fantastic in this show as well. He's, going there, he's really great. And, the stuff that kind of, happens to her where she seems like, okay, she's going down a good path, and then, like addiction, it just comes back on you again. And the situation where she meets another character, this other major drug dealer she meets through Fez, which I kind of blame Lori, I think was the other drug dealer's name, right? Lori was her name?
Well, Lori is bigger than that. Lori's the one that I can't wait for season 3, because that's about to be some shit. Lori's like the head bitch, though. Like,
yeah.
If Fez is dealing the drugs, he probably got them from Lori type shit.
Yeah. Which I kind of almost blame her because I'm like, well, you could clearly see this girl is. Look at her. I mean, this girl is all straight. I mean, when she said she was came.
That's the point. She's
So you think what? You think she knew
yeah,
she
but
wasn't?
that's the point. You have yeah, she 100% knew that she wasn't getting her.
Okay, interesting. Okay, because I was like, yeah, because I was like, why would you give this girl? You know, this girl gonna smoke all this shit in this case. Like, I just like, no way that she's gonna do that.
I don't think it was more so she knew she was gonna smoke all of it, but again, someone who used to, well, I only dealt with marijuana. I didn't do nothing. I can go to jail for a long time because fuck you, you ain't taking my freedom. But um, it's kind of unspoken. Again, Rue doing shit that you don't know what you doing.
Yeah,
Where it's like you don't take drugs unless you know how to sell them. Period. It don't got even if you dabble because you gon' do it, but you can still sell it, flip it, and make the money back. So even if you are a user, you can still sell the weed or sell whatever you got. But Rue is not about that life. Rue is not a drug dealer, right?
yeah,
So it's more so just like again, if I was a drug dealer giving this to her, it was more so just like it don't matter whether you sell it or not because either you gonna be dead or you gonna get my money back to me somehow. Which is pretty much where Lori left off. Like I think Lori told her like,
yeah,
I'll sell you into the you feel me these streets out here. You gonna make my money back. So
yeah.
it was more so just like Rue. You we all know the storyline, but I was just like, oh my god, like I really wish you would have just like handed that off to Fez and asked that nigga to like flip it for you, like he for real. Like
Yeah.
I
Well,
wish
she
you would have just
already, well,
handed
she
it
did go
off.
to him at first and told him about the plan, and he already again because he knows he's like, what you think you gonna be, Madam C.J. Walker out here? Like, come on, girl, stop
Right?
it. Like that's just ridiculous. He already knew, so he already knew. But yeah, we'll get into that more with season two a little bit of some of the issues that maybe we had with that. So I'm gonna go to another character here. I'm gonna go to Cassie. So you have Cassie, who's played by Sydney Sweeney, and kind of whole arc to the show. And oh, by the way, I forgot to a little bit explain kind of a little bit with Rue. Like you see that her backstory with Rue is that her father passed away due to cancer. So you kind of see that, and then also she does have. Was it that she had? Was it kind of like a? I forgot what mental health issue was it. It was kind of like, was it depression or was it even when she was diagnosed with what, autism or uh I forgot what they
I
said.
think I think they said that she was bipolar.
Bipolar. Okay, she was
Yeah, I
bipolar.
think they told him. Yeah, I think Rue is bipolar.
Yeah. Okay. So she did have that issue, and then you see
But actually, haha, it's me. It's ADHD.
ADHD.
Actually,
Okay.
yeah. My
Okay.
initial
All right.
diagnosis, which I'm glad that I don't have anymore, is BPD, which is borderline personality disorder. So with that dissociation of self and that no feeling of identity, I like, for instance, if people were to ask me who I am, I would literally freak out because I wouldn't be able to tell you who I am. Like I don't know what the fuck to tell you. That's a big thing with BPD. But yeah, I think Rue was like borderline personality disorder, depression, and ADHD. So
Yeah.
gang out here.
And and her parents put her on a lot of medication when she was young, so you could see maybe that also linked her to being an early person who could get into addiction, being on a lot of that medication too. So with Cassie, so you see with her character, her whole backstory is that like I said, kind of single parent household because she did have a dad, but her dad fell into drug addiction. It tells kind of the backstory with her parents and how they kind of fell out with her dad. Getting a lot of attention from women, even though he never did cheat on his wife. But his wife was very jealous, and I forgot the actress who plays his wife. I remember that actress when she was on Always Sunny. She was the
It's Alana Ubach who plays Susie Howard.
Yeah.
She's go.
Yeah. And she's a literal wine mom. Like every time you see her, she's got a glass of wine in her hand. Like every single time you see her, she's always got a glass of wine in her hands. And then Cassie's father had drug addiction. He left the house. So it's mostly just her mother. She does have a sister who's Lexi, who you see is played by Maud Apatow. And Cassie grew. She became a very beautiful woman, got a lot of attention, as you can see, from men, and kind of what that leads her, and then especially men in her own family, as they also point out there, as you can kind of see there, and that leads her to kind of being this popular girl. And at the beginning of the series, you see her. She's in season 1. You see she's in a relationship with McKay, who's a star football player, and well, not a star football player. He was in high school, but not so much in college. And you see kind of what happens there. Even though that character in season 2 completely done away with. I don't even know what they said happened to him after they broke up. You didn't even hear about that character ever again. So she was in a relationship with him at the beginning of the first season, and kind of you see kind of her struggle of mostly being this girl who's only validated through her looks, and really depends on other people validating her and being in love, whether it is from McKay or eventually in season 2 when it is from Nate. What did you all think about the Cassie character there, Reese? What did you kind of think about her?
She's a mess. she's
Girl, get some
my
therapy.
God. My God, how do you go from being Maddie's best friend to dating her, I guess, ex, and
they weren't
sloppy, obsessed mess? I guess, like, in a way, you kind of forget, like, these are teenagers, so yeah, that's kind of par for the course. But my God, girl, you throwing up in the pool and shit, crying. It's just. I felt bad, but at the same time, I'm like, you're getting yours, because this is a mess. Like, how dare you do that to Queen Maddie, first of all? Second of all, you know how abusive Nate is, and you think he's going to be any different for you? Like, girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked her in the first season, and this season I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot to say about her other than she's really embarrassing, and I guess it's kind of speaking to, I don't know if she's bipolar or whatever, but
Jena, what were kind of your thoughts?
Cassie actually reminded me of quite a few people I knew in high school. I feel like Cassie, I feel like, is a Cancer. I actually enjoyed Cassie's portrayal because I feel like Cassie was the true messy character, but also the most vulnerable. And I also felt like I don't know, no one can do messy like Cassie. So I didn't actually really remember her in the first season. That's really, really bad. But I was still just hooked on Jules a lot in the first season. Like, Jules still has my heart. So, and I think from season 1, the only thing I remember about Cassie was like being pregnant. But like, I feel bad for Cassie because Cassie is actually a really sweet girl. But this is what happens when like really sweet people don't know how to have healthy boundaries. And then it's also like, again, her background is like her family was mad abusive. And then it's like abandonment issues. And then it is like she's seen as this, I wouldn't even say a sex object, but Cassie just has this innocence to her, really. She really does, where it's almost delectable. It's almost like from somebody who's like predatory would love to just like be a predator towards her, which is actually really sad. And actually a lot of the characters in there are predatory as fuck towards her. It's really disgusting. I just feel bad because I feel like she didn't have a real strong mentorship of how, again, to build healthy boundaries, to really feel secure within herself, and to understand that you can be this really sweet and sentimental person and really caring, but you don't have to let people walk over you, nor is that an excuse for you to sit up here and play victim a lot. And I hate that terminology, playing victim, but I feel like Cassie is an example of what people think they're talking about when they use that phrase. Because I actually hate that phrase a lot. But I now understand, like, this would probably be an example of, like, when folks use manipulation but don't think they can be manipulative. And it's like, you actually can, yes. And I also think Cassie just has a lot of self-esteem issues, what most teenagers have, But I feel like she's just trying on personalities. Just like her makeup. Even if you look at how she dresses, it's very superficial.
Yeah,
It's very
she's very
on
yeah,
the surface.
she is very much that character. It's like her personality, her appearance, it's always shifting
Yeah.
whoever she is seeing at the time, which I'm sure you, Josh, Reese, we've all met and known people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hop on
So
the
I really
latest
think
thing.
just like I feel like she definitely represents the water signs, where it's like you really need to learn, you really need to have a really strong sense of self, and you really need to have a set of core values that you live by. Of course, I'm an adult. Teenagers are going to do this. And I really feel like she thinks that who she is isn't good enough because of her family background. And of course, who she hangs around. Look at her friends. You know what I mean? Being sweet and being sentimental and being caring isn't popular. You know what I mean? Like, if she, let's be honest, if Cassie were to really be herself, would she even have friends? Let's be real. You know what I
Well,
mean? So,
who do you think her true self is? When you say she wouldn't have friends, what do you think?
I feel like Cassie shouldn't even be none of those people should be her friends. If I was her, if I knew her in real life, I'd be like, you need to remove yourself from all these people. And you need to really be around folks who actually are healthy. And you need to really be around folks who can actually show up for you and actually give you the time and attention that you actually need, because you need a little bit more than most folks. I feel like Cassie needs a little bit extra. She's that kid you gotta kind of give a little bit of extra attention to in the class. You know what I mean? But I also feel like she doesn't really have a strong sense of self, and she's around all these really strong, very aggressive characters, and she's just out here. So when she started doing drugs and getting drunk, it's like, ooh, girl, like, what are you like? What? Because she's just floating around. Like, what are you, girl? Why are you here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why are you really here? You over here taking your best friend's man, but you can't get your own. You know what I mean? It's just, it's giving like you need to just be around people who probably do boring, normal stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like she represents that teenager that's kind of afraid to be like, I like to do this, I like to do this, I like to do that. And what she likes to do isn't really that interesting or fun
Well,
to her peers. You know what I mean? But she's not going to ever admit that because, again, you want to fit in, you want to feel validated. Her abusive family, her dad leaving. She has a lot of abandonment issues. So she, like how you guys said, she changes herself so that people still want to be around her.
yeah.
So.
Yeah, and in the show you see that, she has been in all these kind of different relationships with all these different men who've used her, who've, recorded, her having sex and then, even when they're doing the narration, she already knew that they were going to share the videos, they were going to share the pictures, but, she already knew in the back of her head, but she just did it anyway, just to please that person in the moment. And you see that, also she did have a great talent for figure skating. She was a great figure skater, but her family couldn't afford to, keep giving her lessons and keep having her rent out the rink to give her that. But so she had to stop doing that, but she had a great talent for that. Nick, what kind of your thoughts on Cassie?
I kind of don't have any thoughts on the character that hasn't already been said way more eloquently by Jena and Reese. I think she is a messy character, and much of the character, they need one therapy open.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, I mean, all these characters need therapy. I mean, because that's the running theme of the show. Is a lot of
get some help.
Yeah. And then, like I said, she did have the boyfriend McKay, who you didn't really see much of. I mean, he was just gone in season 2. It felt like they were like, well, we already did your storyline already in waves. And they already had somebody from Euphoria in there already, which was the Maddie character. She was already in there. So I was like, oh, we already kind of did your thing already.
Oh, shit. Yeah, she was in that.
So... Yeah, and then stuff with him I thought was kind of interesting, the little bit about him, and like he, grew up and he was like, with his father, again, instilling this, very, overbearing father, overbearing parent, much like Nate's father of, hey, rigid lessons and everything like that, and this is your ticket to success is like doing this football, and then going to college and realizing, oh shit, this is pretty hard. Dealing with people who are on your level, if not 10 times better, because it's out of your small little area. And going to college is people all around the nation. So it goes into difficult of sports. You know what I mean? Of like, hey, when you kind of go each different level, it gets tougher and tougher. Like from high school to college to pros, it gets just tougher and tougher. So yeah, I mean, I thought that was kind of a great story with him going on. And I guess let's go. I think one of the goats of the show here, Nate. Good goat of the show right here. Super. I mean, he's basically the super villain of the show. Fuck the Riddler. The Batman should have been fighting. He should have been fighting Nate from Euphoria. I think. I mean, this is who she'd have been fighting. I mean, because it was like this guy is a fucking super villain. He's like Lex Luthor.
This guy is evil.
Yeah, I mean, he's like Lex Luthor. He's 2 steps ahead of everybody else and already manipulative, masterminding all of the other stuff. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this guy is.
I think we give him way too much credit. I think he's just a piece of shit, and he only thinks about himself. I don't think he's really
also yes.
Related.
Yeah, I mean, he's that too. I will say though, one scene. I mean, because you see at the show how calculating he is sometimes. But that scene in the hot tub, like, he didn't know what the fuck to do. Because as soon as he said no, and then when Maddie said, like, what you mean no? He was scared as hell. I mean, he was petrified.
It was like,
he acts like he's so big and bad every other time. Say it with your chest. Were you scared of Maddie? I would be too, but I mean.
Yeah. I mean, he's a 6'5" man scared of a 5'1" Latina. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, he was petrified.
Which, accurate.
But what do you all think about the Nate character? Nick, what do you think about Nate?
I think he is one of the most despicable, hateable characters on television in the last. Like, I felt more rage towards him than I did with like Joffrey, than I did Ramsay Bolton, than I did the fucking Meth Damon from Breaking Bad. But credit to Jacob Elordi because he is fantastic in this show of making Nate as despicable as he is. And the entire time I was waiting on him to get his ass whooped. But a credit to the show also because you don't sympathize with Nate, you have empathy. You understand why he is the way that he is. Still want him to get his ass whooped.
Yeah. Jena, what were kind of your thoughts?
Funny enough, I think Nate is the most dramatically written character on the show, and that's saying a lot. I also knew, as much as Nate is unlikable in this show, I knew a lot of boys like Nate who are even more unlikable. Nate, I ain't gonna cap. I would have fucked Nate in high school. Because he's a fucking douchebag. There's something about that asshole douchebag energy that just makes me want to just go downtown with that guy. For real. He just gives that, I know I shouldn't be with you. That's why I probably relate to Cassie, because she probably represents a part of my personality. It's like, oh, girl, that's toxic. But Nate, honestly, again, I feel like season 2 really wrapped up the arcs of these characters really well. And I start to feel for Nate in a way where it's like, damn, I wonder how you would have turned out if you had a completely different upbringing and somebody actually like instilling some form of moral code. Would you still be this type of?
If he had like an actual decent father figure, or even a strong mom.
Yeah,
but you see, spoilers for season 2. Eventually, Cal Jacobs is out of the house, and it's him drinking, which is terrifying.
Yeah, it's also too. I also like the fact they brought in a Nate character to talk about really like the physical abuse that goes on in these relationships, and how like at the end when Maddie was like basically like, bitch, this is just the beginning. You feel me? Like you really thought, didn't you, that you were gonna be treated differently? And it just goes to show you just how charming really abusive partners can be. So I feel like his character is essential to this show because everybody always thinks that, oh, well, I would never talk to a Nate, or I would never. Yeah, you would. And you probably dated one. You know what I mean? Like if you're a heterosexual, I'm not purely heterosexual, but if you are a straight person and you dealt with men, I'm pretty sure you came across a Nate or two. So I feel like his arc and really showing the cycle of suppressed expression, suppressing healthy expressions of masculinity, not being able to explore being gay, because that was a big thing with Nate too.
So
And then his dad is like always talking about, are you gay, gay this, gay that, and how I really feel like his abuse of his girlfriends is more so the abuse of the feminine aspects of himself that he cannot reckon with.
so do you
Um,
think Nate is gay, or is he bi, or is he...
I feel like we won't.
Man, that boy gay as hell.
I think Nate honestly is bisexual.
I mean,
I think
a
Nate is bisexual.
scene of him just getting in fucking McKay's face is like, hey, did you fuck her? It's like, where'd you finish, man? Where'd you finish, bro? Come on, just tell me.
I mean, well,
I was
and
like,
that's also part of
bro.
that male ego that somehow men think goes away after high school, but it doesn't. And I feel like with Nate,
Does
what's
not.
sad is that like I don't think he'll be able to even explore that in a healthy manner at all. You feel me? That's a question that we can't even answer. We can probably answer better for him, but he can never really answer that for himself because he will never have the space to be able to explore that. And that's always going to be that raw open wound that he's always going to pick at to be able to fuel his hatred for himself, his hatred for anything feminine about himself, and of course that translates over to the women that he deals with. Because honestly, like I'm pretty sure he is sexually attracted to women, and he's also probably sexually attracted to men. But again, he won't ever be able to explore that. But all in all, the way the character is written, I really funny. I was like, damn, am I watching One Tree Hill or Euphoria? I'm confused. Because he does seem like a CW
hey,
character.
I think there are
He does.
I think there are points, especially with the latter half of season 2, where it does kind of like dance that fine line into like retelling. I was like, I thought I was watching where I fell asleep in on came Riverdale.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what the hell? Friday Night Lights? The hell?
Some of the stuff he does, like, makes one guy life a living hell. He just fucks one guy life completely up. He just,
no reason.
Well, I guess for a reason per se. I mean, I guess because he is under the assumption that he did rape her. I mean, so he is kind of under that assumption. So I guess, I mean, I'd say justify what he did, but it was like, okay, it's kind of for some type of reason. And then it's like there's so many ways they present him like he's like a true villain when he's just sitting in the corner, like that scene where he had the gun and he's in Maddie's room and he's just you don't even see Maddie react to it at first. He's just, you see the camera shot from the mirror. He's just sitting there stone faced, just looking straight at him. I'm like, Jesus, like they shooting this dude like American Psycho. Like it's like fucking amazing.
If they ever decide to remake American Psycho, which come on, they are gonna. Jacob Elordi's putting his work in.
Yeah, I think he would make a good Batman. You know what I mean? Actually, like 10, 12 years, I think he'd be a pretty good Batman. Because you're going to make another Batman movie again. So I was like, hey, I think he would do a pretty good job. But yeah, I mean, this is so many things. And the one thing I also want to talk about the conclusion at the end of season 2 with his father. But first, I want to get Reese. What do you think about Nate?
How much time do you have? I think the frustrating thing about Nate is that there are so many Nates running around. So many. Maybe not to the extent of what's portrayed in the show. But like even me, like I've dated a Nate. I've dated the type who's like handsome, he's charming, but then more and more he starts to erode at your self-esteem. Yep. More and more it's like, oh well, I prefer when you look like this and don't do that and don't do this. And then it starts to wane on you and you start to internalize those things, which is what I've been seeing with both Maddie and Cassie. Cassie to more severe degree because she really doesn't have that sense of self to begin with. But Nate is one of those people who he loves to have that sense of power. And with Cassie, she allows him to do it. He can mold Cassie into whatever he wants her to be and she'll run with it. she's basically a Maddie clone at this point because Maddie's finally starting to kind of stand up for herself against Nate, deciding not to go back to him, even though she's back and forth with that decision. But ultimately, he wants somebody who is essentially submissive to him. And Cassie is absolutely that. I don't think Nate even necessarily cares all that much about Cassie, but I think he uses her as a pawn because he's playing this weird game of chess with Maddie where he's basically trying to be like, well, I was the more powerful person in this relationship. I had a hold over you, and I'm gonna dangle Cassie in front of you until you decide that you're gonna come back to me. It's just like a big web of games for him. And there's this one scene, I can't remember which episode it was in, but there's this one scene where Cassie leaves home and decides to meet up with Nate. And the way that it's shot, it's just Cassie going into the room with Nate and Nate closing the door really slowly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of symbolic, is like basically like, I have you. You're under my control now, and you're gonna do whatever I say you're gonna do, and that's that. And it's kind of scary because it's like, I'm not sure if Cassie is aware of what's happening. Because to her, she has this big fantasy in her mind that she's gonna be Nate's love. They're gonna get married. They're gonna have kids together. Everything's gonna be wonderful. But she's not realizing she basically just stepped into what will, I'm sure, be an abusive relationship, as if it isn't already. Because it's already emotionally abusive, but I think it's gonna start to escalate, which is a really scary thing to see.
Yep.
So, and then with Nate's relationship with his dad, I think so many aspects of his dad he recognizes within himself, and he fights so hard to kind of make sure to suppress those things. And it's interesting because the way that he treats women is basically like him rebelling against his dad's sexuality and his own. I feel like in a way, like he wants to be able to express himself the way that he truly is, and he feels like he can't do that because he sees his dad and he associates so many terrible things with his dad, and he feels like he's going to turn into that.
Yeah.
So I think that speaks a lot to the way his toxic masculinity kind of manifests, and that so much of it is tied to his dad's identity, and he's trying to run away from that, so he kind of makes himself almost like a womanizer. And I do agree with you, Jena, that he's probably bisexual, and I think he's grappling really badly with that. And then the scene with the play where it's all the guys doing that musical number, I love that, by the way.
That incredible piece.
But he stormed out and he's like, that's homophobic. But I think it's so blatantly putting something in front of him that he doesn't want to grapple with. So for him to kind of run out and be faced with that, I think there's so many more layers to him, and I hope they explore that in season 3. But the way he goes about dealing with his problems and dealing with his issues is super destructive to everyone around him.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I still think he's a piece of shit, but like you said, I get it.
Yeah.
I see how he got to this point. I would actually be really curious to see a story behind his brother. Because they grew up in the same house, but I wonder what his brother's personality is like. You only see flashes of him here and there. But I would love to see an episode like dedicated to his brother's upbringing and how he goes about navigating his life too.
Yeah, yeah. Because I was gonna ask about that about his brother, because you barely know anything about his brother. He likes a lot of porn. He watches a lot of porn. You know that about him. Yeah. So you see the backstory of kind of Nate, and you see that he kind of found out his father's code to his cabinet and his drawer, and he unlocked it and he saw all these DVDs, and when he looked at these DVDs, he saw that his father was played by Eric Dane, who was he was Mick Steamy, right? He was the Mick Steamy when he was on Grey's Anatomy. I think
he was McSteamy on Grey's Anatomy.
So that was like one of his big roles there. So you see that he's been, over these course of decades, all these years, he's been having, sex with, men and transsexuals, and, in this hotel that he goes out there, and then he just records it and keeps it all. Like when, he found it, he looked at it, and it just, like I said, messed him all up, kind of, and he just also, having this overbearing father, really dedicating himself to working out a lot. Then, cut himself down, got really in shape, and became, the model person, coming from this, really upper middle class family, He's the star, popular athlete, dates the head cheerleader, lives that perfect high school kind of life. And you see kind of the darkness kind of behind there. And also, there's narration that talks about, how he sees his family, how he does hate his father, how he, doesn't like his mother because he sees his mother as weak, sees his brother as stupid, and everything like that. So you kind of do see a lot of that. Yeah, I mean, you do see like, again, sins of the father. It's like, well, you see where he came from, and it's like you can't. Ultimately, it's like, well, this is what you came from, so this is, of course, how you would turn out, in kind of a way. And they do the whole backstory with his father, which I thought was a great episode, and showing like his whole backstory with his father, and then how his father dealt with it. He was in kind of the same position as Nate, popular athlete, good looking guy. Met his wife, who eventually became Nate's mother in high school, and then he had this deep bond and connection with his best friend. But at that time when he was growing up, especially dealing with a hard nosed father, that you see that of course he could never say that he loved his friend, you know what I mean, in a romantic sense, like and you see that scene when he gets off the phone with his eventual wife that she's pregnant, and then he's just crying because he has to hide who he is forever, you know what I mean. He could never kind of come out and admit that, and that kind of affects it, poisoned all these other elements in his life, poisoned his children. And also that was I have to admit, that was a great speech by Eric Dane. I mean, when he was just going off in the house, I mean, that was pretty great. I mean, it was funny, but sad, but tragic all at the same time.
It's funny. It's a very complex scene because it is somewhat cathartic, except it's for a character that you still despise. Yeah. It's like, hey, yeah, live your truth, man. Still a piece of shit, but
yeah. And yeah, so I thought that was absolutely crazy. And I kind of wanted to talk about
just give it this whole hanging out.
Because I wanted to kind of get you guys' opinion on what like the end of season 2, which kind of didn't make a little sense to me. So kind of one of the issues I had was that. Because they say that when his father finally leaves and Nate, he was like, I got to do damage control because I don't want the word coming out that my father's had sex with underage girls and things like that. And I had sex with all these people in this hotel. But then he calls the police on his father. So I was like, why? What was the switch there? Because it's like...
well, that had more to do... Again, Nate. It had more to do with Nate coming to terms with probably having to take over his father's business. And that interaction with Jules, Jules is another personality trait of mine. Where it was like, are you really going to go up there and take that chili and touch that man's hand in public? And it was interesting because he was like, don't dox me. You know what I mean? It ended up being your own fucking son. It'd be your own kids. So I think it was more so just like when he started putting 2 and 2 together, eventually this was going to come out. So it was more so just like, I'd rather be the one in charge of doing it and kind of making sure that we protect the family legacy and kind of protect my financial future and the future of this family's company with this company. And also just to get back at him. Because I don't think Nate's anger with his father is that he's gay. It's the fact that you have the audacity, the caucasity to sit up here and do all this shady ass shit, but then want to sit up here and tell me who the fuck I need to be. Like, you can go fuck yourself. It's beyond hypocritical. It's literally, like I said, it's poison. So it didn't make sense at first. But honestly, it was definitely done, probably like 80% was done out of spite. And also because he noticed how he didn't give out Jules, he didn't dox Jules. He gave Jules the copy and was like, hey, I could have outed you or could have handed this over to the police, but you feel me? Like, I know you. And it was like, all right, so there is some form of compassion. You are capable of some form of empathy. You're not a serial killer, but you're still, like Reese beautifully summed up, a piece of shit. But it's like when you're raised by a piece of shit, that's all you're gonna know. So I really think that was more so done out of spite, and then the other 20% for real was protecting the family's legacy with that company. Because imagine if that had leaked.
Yeah.
You know me, like just imagine what that would have did to the family versus him doing it, and then they have control over how public it goes and so on and so forth. So I actually think that was pretty smart, and I'm actually glad that Nate did that because again, accountability needs to be had. Period. You know, you can't you can't live a secret life like that, and then treat your kids like that. Like you can go fuck yourself. So
Yeah. Do you all agree with that pretty much theory that it was pretty much protecting the family business and then spite? Do you all agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
definitely
I
protect not only just
think
the
it's like
family, but
95% spite, and then I think it's 95% spite, and then the other out of protecting the business. Because I think the timing is a little suspect because it's right after Nate left the play during the holding out for a hero number. And something about how you talked about it, killing that feminine side of himself, and literally sending his like in his mind, it's like, oh, fuck this guy.
Yeah. Um.
Reese, what were you? I didn't hear what Reese said.
oh, sorry,
Because
I think it's cutting out a little bit. Yeah, I was just gonna kind of echo what was said here. I think it was definitely it was more to protect the family business and protect himself. I don't necessarily believe that he did it from a place of compassion, to be honest. Just based on how he's treated everybody else in his life, I don't think all of a sudden that's going to change. I think him giving it to Jules was more of a power move than anything. Uh,
Mm.
he needs, to manipulate Jules into something or other. Then he can be like, "Hey, well, I gave you that disc. I protected your reputation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
ABC, because just because I've seen that happen, especially with people who are on the spectrum of narcissism, rarely ever are they doing anything out of the goodness of their own heart. They might be thinking of things down the line and be like, hey, like, this looks like a good gesture in the moment, but ultimately it serves me in some way. And I think that's what's happening here with him and Jules. I don't necessarily think he really cares, to be honest.
Lex Luthor, always thinking ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
Not
Uh.
that smart. He's just selfish.
Right.
He's self-centered.
Yeah.
And that drives a lot of his actions, I think. I don't think he's all that smart, but yeah.
Nate is definitely a Gemini with a Leo rising. Let's
Yeah.
just say.
Yeah. I guess to your point. I mean, if he was, yeah. I mean, if he was that smart, I mean, he should have known. I mean, there was going to be repercussions for calling the police on a drug dealer. I mean, he should have. I mean, he should have definitely known that. Cat. The situation. I've been hearing about some things. That Cat. Do you all think with that character? Do you think it's a little bit? People just said that she was kind of saddled with the big girl, kind of struggling with her self image type thing. Do you all think that that was kind of like a major issue with her character that she never really got outside of that of just body issues and body positivity? Do you think that's all her character was?
Mm,
Dun, 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 dun,
right.
dun, dun.
I mean, I feel like
I have
that's
something to say, but I'll let you go first.
no. I mean, I feel like that's how we're reading it, but I don't think that's all to that character personally. Um, I think that Cat is one of those characters that is probably the least problematic and the most sane out of all of the groups. But again, I like that character because I got into. I feel like Cat is definitely one of those characters where you are dabbling. You're being viewed as an adult. Actually, funny enough, I feel like when you're thicker and you're in high school, you automatically get kind of viewed and over sexualized already. And you're kind of treated as an adult. Like that one scene, the dinner scene, when they were like, basically like, "Who are you? What are you gonna do with your life?" Basically, and didn't have an answer. It was one of those moments where it's like, I think she represents that type of weird intersection where we explore our adulthood through our sexuality and how we're sexualized as teens, but we really don't know like who we are, what we're doing. We just kind of cosplay. it's a lot of cosplaying. So when I feel like it's like, oh, she's big, but she's confident and she's hot. You know what I mean? Like she ain't out here like, oh, I have cellulite. No, that she walking down the halls to her own soundtrack. You know what I mean? And I love that. But with that comes that type of you are that strong as a woman, when you are that confident as a woman, when you do have your own style and your own whatever, it's like that becomes all of your identity though. You know what I mean? Because you're not really developing anything else other than okay, I know I'm big, so I'm just gonna make sure I have confidence in my bigness or have confidence in the thing that makes me an outcast in society, and that kind of becomes your entire identity. So when somebody does ask you what the fuck you really want to do with your life and who you really are, you sitting there looking like boo boo the foo because you don't really, you haven't yourself out. Ironically enough, much of your identity is based on like being the antithesis or the fuck you to the social norm, and it's just like that's cool, but you can't make that the core of your identity. You still need to be loved as a human being, you still need compassion, you still need empathy, and you still really need to discover parts of yourself that's outside of the lens of what you've been viewed as. I do feel like it was definitely she was definitely underutilized this season, and I wish we would have kept it going because she was one of my favorite characters of season one. And like I said, that represent again another facet of my exploration into camming, and I was like, "Fuck yeah!" Like I'm glad people are talking about this because I was camming underage too. So it's just like I was kind of excited they touched upon that because I don't think people know how common that is. And I do appreciate the body confidence for real because honestly, her body, there's nothing wrong with her body. She's not fat. You know what I mean? So it's just interesting that she really have that confidence. So I don't know. I don't know how. I think we're reading it as that just because we're in a time and a climate where we have to be so vocal and so strong in our identities because other people want to suppress that so much, so we have to overcompensate. I don't think that's really how the showrunners are really writing that character, to be honest.
So, Nick, you spoke about there was tension between her and Sam Levinson. You want to elaborate on that?
All I've heard is that Barbie Ferreira had issues with a lot of the planned storylines for Kat's character, and got in talking with Sam Levinson about it. And from my understanding, limited understanding, as a result of that, a lot of Kat's scenes got cut.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, you see with Kat, you see kind of her backstory, how she kind of put on all that weight. One day she went on vacation and kept sipping on, what was it, peanut? What was it? Was it pina coladas?
Virgin pina coladas.
Virgin, and she kept sipping on those like all day, every day. And she just packed on a lot of this weight. And she kind of kept it, even though she was, I think they say she was like a fairly tall girl, right? For her like age, she was like a fairly tall girl.
Yeah, for her age, she was tall, but still the weight she put on it put her overweight. Her age, and I think a lot of it was the lack of self-esteem because she had a boyfriend prior to going on that vacation who dumped her when she came back.
Well, I mean, would you call that a boyfriend, or would you just call that? I mean, is that
that's
even
middle school boyfriend?
I guess. I mean, yeah, I guess that's when you don't have a word for it. You always together and you share lunch. You know what I mean? I guess you just holding hands, walking down. I guess so. Middle school.
Hey, middle school.
Oh, you cut out there. What'd you say?
Oh, middle school scale. That's basically.
Oh, damn! You cut out there again. What the?
Damn! I keep cutting out. What the hell?
I don't know.
Yeah, and like the middle school scale. Yeah, and like the middle school scale. That's basically wifey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
And
also,
Third time's
I
a
also
charm.
actually like the fact with her character too of the whole exploration of like an online persona that a lot of people don't realize you have in like real life. Actually, that was pretty cool. Like with her, what she has a Tumblr or she like writes like erotic.
yeah, fan fiction. Like she was this.
Yeah, she wrote. Yeah, she was writing fan fiction on Tumblr.
She was.
And I found that really interesting I wish they would explore that more of just like you can be known so much in one sphere, and then you come to real life and you feel like you don't really relate to the people around you in real life.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
really isolating feeling, actually.
Because it talks about how she was a superstar on Tumblr. She's got like thousands of followers online, a horde, like a legion of fans of hers. But then she gets into real life and she's around these other traditionally, I guess, beautiful girls, like Maddie and Casey, who take all the attention in that friend group, and being a part of that. If they're walking down the hallway, more than likely people are gonna more maybe gravitate to more Cassie and Maddie rather than her. And they're sitting there constantly obsessing about their lives, about their relationship troubles. I mean, even though granted, Maddie is dating she's dating American Psycho, so she can. She's got a lot of trouble there. She needs a lot of help. She's dating a serial killer. So not
Well,
even.
he's not a serial killer.
Well, it's like baseline personalities. Like
He's basically dating Dennis Ram from It's Always Sunny.
yeah. Well, so serial killer still. Basically kind of serial killer there too. So you see that. Reese, what kind of your thoughts on Kat and kind of her storyline? Do you think she was not utilized the best?
I don't like the way they basically did a complete 180 with her character this season. Season one, I loved her. I think she is such an archetype for just being a revolutionary in a world where there's certain beauty standards, and she's like, well, I don't look like that, but I'm still a bad bitch and I'm gonna act like it and you're gonna respect me. And like, I loved her for that.
Yeah.
But I also think there's so much more to her character than, just where she stands as far as her weight is concerned. I think she's incredibly intelligent. She's a caring person. I think she probably has the most sense out of anybody else within that whole friend group. And then you see her this season, and she's sitting across the table from Ethan, and she's pretending like she all of a sudden has a brain tumor because she would rather go with some elaborate lie than be upfront about wanting to break up with
That
Ethan.
boy
Bizarre to me.
is so dirty.
In a sense, the way
It's a scene that comes out of nowhere. Really.
Yeah, and I'm assuming there's probably more context for like how she got to that point in the
because
but I was like, why would you leave that in? Because that doesn't make any sense up to this point. Like for her,
according to this article on Elle, for apparently walked off the set during season 2. She had disagreement with Sam Levinson over where Kat's storyline was going, so a lot of her lines got cut.
Okay.
Which I think may contribute to why making up a brain tumor feels so jarring and sudden.
Yeah, because it completely betrays the character she is.
I actually kind of liked where that story was going.
Yeah, like she's a very upfront, honest person. She's confident in herself, so if she was feeling like the relationship wasn't going anywhere, I feel like she'd be the person to be like, hey, you know what? I really like you and I want to remain friends with you, but as far as our relationship is concerned, we don't work anymore, and I think we should go our separate ways. That's all she had to say, but for her to go
just
into
brain tumor,
brain tumor, where did that come from? That was so weird to me.
Gaslighting him.
It doesn't seem like her character at all. On top of not seeing her much this season, it's just it's such a weird turn to take with her. And like I understand that there were things happening off screen, but at the same time, it still has to make sense in the context of the story. I would have cut that whole thing out completely. And maybe even if you wanted to do a time jump for season 3 and just start off with, oh yeah, Ethan and I broke up, you didn't even have to really elaborate on the details of that. Like she could have just verbally moved on because you don't really see much of their relationship today. But that was such
I think that's like one of the only like maybe 2 or 3 scenes where we actually see her and Ethan together.
Right.
No.
Like we don't really get much of a sense of their dynamic at all, and for her to turn around and be like, oh well, I need to make this elaborate lie and gaslight him on top of that, like that's not her.
Which is so strange. Which is so that them finally getting together was one of the big first season. That was like kind of the Sam and Diane of that first season.
So you don't think it made sense for them to break up, or you just don't think it was well explained?
I think I think them breaking up makes sense. I think the way that that the show went about it doesn't.
Right.
And it's just the manner in which Kat breaks up with him. It just comes so far out of left field for what we know about Kat as a character.
Okay. All right, we got a few more characters left.
But credit to Ethan, he took his breakup like a champ, and he's now the star of the play.
Yeah. Well, I guess since we're talking about the play, might as well talk about Lexi. And Lexi, who's Maud Apatow, is played by that. She's in here. And the perfect description of her is said in season 2. I mean, she's an observer, a spectator, somebody who watches other people, kind of do these things to themselves, and she kind of just takes it all in. And she's also in a situation kind of like Kat, where she has this, very attractive sister, next to this very attractive person, and she kind of gets, left to the side, because so much of the attention is focused on her sister for the way she looks, and she's kind of just left to the side. I guess it's supposed to be, is her sister supposed to be like a year younger or older, or?
I think
I a couple months.
Okay, yeah. And you can see that. And then she does do this play, which basically retells the whole events that we've seen from season 1 and season 2.
Yeah, the play it's basically the players area.
Yeah, which is a very elaborate high school play. She brought in props, a carousel.
Which that is the most unrealistic thing about this show, the way they blow up high school theater budgets.
Yeah.
To Oklahoma. They could not afford this production.
Oh yeah. I mean, I thought that was kind of crazy. What do you all think? Because I feel like Lexi might be my favorite character of the show. I mean, she's maybe the most kind of stable one, maybe kind of, at least had to process her trauma. It's like, okay, I'm going to put all this into a play to just express all of it.
She is the one character. She is the one character in this entire show that I think is dealing with her trauma and with all of the troubles of her life in an actual and creative way. And I think because that, she ends up being the most sane person on the show. In a way, I think and Rue talked about it in the finale, it gave a look back on her actions done as a drug addict, and look back on him without a judgmental lens, and look back and say, okay, I'm just a human being and I'm trying to figure shit out. And I think that's kind of a turning point into her journey of sobriety. And not just for that, the play is some of the best comedic beats on the show has ever done. I think season 2 is much funnier than anything that was done in season 1. Austin Abrams as Ethan play Susie, the girl's mother, just seeing the girl reaction to the whole play. It's like, so that's my baby energy.
Yeah. I mean, the mother, she was into it. The mother was laughing. She was like, oh, yeah, look at me. I am a drunk. Look at that.
It's like, that's supposed to be me.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I mean, Lexi
and then the peak, the funny entire thing is you have Cassie interrupting the play, and then the fake Cassie horse that she was, like, dry humping.
Oh, yeah. Jena, what were you going
I totally forgot about that. That shit was hella funny. No, it's interesting. Like I said, Lexi had to see her friend get addicted to drugs. Lexi had to witness her older sister being a fucking thought bot out here. So it's just like Lexi is the chorus in the Shakespeare play. You know what I mean? Like Lexi is the
she's basically the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of this entire series.
Yeah. It's the closest to a reliable narrator you're gonna get, and I feel like that play, like I said before, was her way of having a voice, because she was so often overlooked because she wasn't I think Lexi is fucking drop dead gorgeous, but compared to Cassie, what's socially, accepted as beautiful feminine wise, Lexi doesn't really hold up to that. So the fact that Lexi was able to, in her own way, express herself and then drag everybody for filth properly. I think that was really great. It really speaks to her talent as a writer. It speaks to her talent as an artist, and I really feel like Lexi ain't gonna be that motherfucker to fuck with in season 3 for real because Lexi sees everything. Lexi sees everything. Lexi hears everything. So it's kind of just like it's gonna be interesting to see like kind of her perspective because she's seen so much and people don't really pay her no mind, but that ends up being, you know, the who gets the last laugh. You know, Lexi did kind of. And I just think that's really dope that she was able to tell her story. I think it's definitely Lexi thematically represents how important it is to tell your story. And to really have a voice, whether you write whatever you need to do, just tell your story and don't be silent about all the things that affect you in your life. So I like Lexi.
Reese?
I'm of two minds about Lexi. On one hand, I think if you're trying to identify a Lex Luthor in Euphoria, it would be Lexi. She's got dirt on everybody, and if she wanted to, she could exploit everybody.
She could cancel the fuck out of that entire school.
Like, the play was just a taste. The play was a nice way to go about it, but she's also warning everybody, like, fuck with me, I dare you, and I will ruin all of your plays. But on the other hand, I feel like Lexi is one of those people who doesn't speak up enough. Like, she complains about not being heard, but in the moment, I don't feel like she really speaks up at all. And I think that's kind of one of her shortcomings, because you can't really complain that you're not heard if you're not speaking.
Amen.
And if you're just observing,
Amen.
You know, and if you're just observing,
but I think
just standing by while shit goes down and you're not doing anything about it, how are you any better? And how are you gonna claim that no one hears me if you never step up to say anything? Like
Amen. I agree with that 100%, and I think that's something that I really related to the character of Lexi, because naturally I'm a very shy person. It's like I don't speak. I don't speak much. I'm not very sociable because this is like a webcam, and I have like a little bit of that disconnect. But I think a lot of the turning the character Lexi is her relation, and how just her through her relationship with this guy, she finds someone that is interested in her, wants to like know her story and wants to know her, and inspires her to take this outlet, tell it. So I guess it does in order to you to get off your ass and tell that story, which this show, The Afternoon Tune, has helped me out with a.
What is this just me, or is it Nick Friesen? Is he kind of coming in and out for anybody else, or is this just me?
Yeah. It's probably the internet. It's probably Nick's internet.
Yeah, it's my internet. It's fucking irritating.
Okay. Yeah, but I got what you said. Majority got what you said there. Real quick, so Lexi, she begins kind of relationship with Fez. Some people said that didn't make sense because he's a drug dealer. Her father was a drug addict. Didn't really seem like it would be the most good relationship for her to have with somebody.
Have you seen what his fine ass Mac Miller want to look like? You know, Fez got that little.
Hey, Fez is a charming dude. I think for someone that for this show, it's incredible that Fez ends up being one of the more positive masculine role models on this show.
The bar is in hell.
The bar is very low.
Well, I think
Ethan and Fez are the two positive masculine.
Yeah. Ethan is pretty
Reese.
I don't mind Fez. I don't find him attractive, but I don't mind him as a character. I think he's a very sympathetic character. He cares deeply about Ashtray. He just wants to make a better life for both of them. So I really respect that aspect of his character. But otherwise, I'm just like, ugh, I've met Fez before. I've seen so many guys like him, and they just turn me off. That's probably why I make the association when it comes to him.
Mm.
But yeah, him and Lexi, I actually do think they make sense because he's just one of those people who's so self assured, and I think Lexi wants to be that way, and she sees that in him.
Yep.
So it makes sense to me that, when they finally end up meeting, that they got along as well as they did. Both of them are interested in people. Both of them can read people pretty well, whether or not they, comment on them in the moment or not. But I think they have a lot of similarities, and although they're from completely different sides of the track, I think they have a lot of common ground, and it makes sense for them to have that relationship. For me, I don't know, Fez is just Fez bothers me. He does. Like I think at his core he's a good person, but at the same time it's like pick one, dude. Like which one is it gonna be? Are you gonna be
Yeah.
the person who beats the shit out of Nate
Because
even
I
though he
think
deserves it,
on this
or
show,
the
it's
sympathetic person who relates to
of
Lexi?
people
Reese,
and
don't do
circumstances
that.
that
Don't box
talked
my
about.
baby like that, okay? He could be. That's why I like Fez. Like, no, okay, I don't know. I think Fez is hot, but that's because I
Yeah,
like
we
the
talked.
little
Yeah,
the bad
we
boy.
talked about the. Yeah, we talked about this. About this with Nate and how Nate is very much that bad boy high school jock image, upper middle class, but the circumstances turned him into this like psychopathic character. And you have Fezco, who in the first episode we finally get his back. He raised by his drug dealer grandmother and taught very somehow still at his core is still a good person.
hmm And I wouldn't even like Fez and Nate are on the opposite spectrum, honestly, because Fez maturity there is just mild. It's light years ahead of Nate. And when he beat Nate's, when I tell you,
That was
I was aroused. I was aroused by that violence. I was like, see, Fez, you can go out. You can go out to the Waffle House.
dude.
You go-
I was watching that first episode on the train on my way home with my headphones in. And you know how the trains in Japan, you're not really like supposed to like get loud or like react to anything or like text. And the second that bottle shattered on his head, I was like,
yeah, no, Fez.
fuck him up.
I could date Fez in real life. Like I said, me and him go to that Waffle House, and and I ain't gotta. But my man's gonna protect me, though. You know what I mean? Like,
Fez basically filled out his application for.
Nah, yeah, Fez. That's
Can you fight?
right, Nick?
Yeah. It was that was a great scene, the way they set that up and the way he was just kind of stalking and just looking at him over there,
Just like so, even while he's beating his ass, is just so nonchalant.
It's about that life. Fez about that life.
and the way Lexi, she was looking at him, looking back at Nate, looking at him, looking at Nate, going like, oh shit, I know what's about to happen, and I was like there. I was like,
Upgraded. He
Right?
can fight, but I mean, what's he gonna do against the SWAT team?
True. Oh yeah, man.
Oh, that was tragic.
That
That was a
was
sad
tragic. That whole between both of them, and it showed, kids gotta grow up way faster than what they really should have to.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't like talking about that because I actually cried. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that scene also showed that Ashtray is a kid. Because the way he went about it, it wasn't something that a mature person would do. Like he's basically like, I'm gonna take on all of these cops and that's it. Like that's a child's mentality.
Yeah, it's a child's mind. He thinks that he's invincible. He thinks that okay, I handled Mouse, I handled this other guy, and no matter what's gonna happen, I'm gonna back up my older brother Ashtray, my older brother Fez, excuse me, and then reality comes, and it's this tragic, it's heartbreaking beat because you have Fez the entire time just screaming, "Hey, don't shoot! He's a kid."
so do you all think Fez is gone from the show? Like we're just gonna see him in prison, or do you think?
No. No,
No.
not at all.
Okay.
First off,
I think
them shooting
I
and
think
murdering a child is going to be come into play. Them cops not going to get. I mean, they'll probably get away with it, but for real, like they're not going to. Like the murder of Ashtray and the issues with like Fez and the drugs and because there's that whole storyline of them trying to. I forgot what murder or some shit they was trying to put on Fez, and they was tapping his phone.
Oh, they were trying to frame Fez for the murder of that drug dealer,
Yeah.
and the entire time you get that character, that side character Faye, who is like a low key MVP of the show.
Yes.
Faye, who's played by Chloe Cherry.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry.
and the entire time she was just saying, "Yeah,
like, I
didn't
like
Lori kill him?"
Right.
Oh wait, what was that? Was that Reese?
Oh, I was saying, what's her name? Chloe Cherry, the one
Yeah.
with the lips. As soon as she came on screen, I was like,
You want to know something
Girl.
embarrassing that I'm going to tell on myself is that I knew who she was, but I was like,
Yeah.
wait, I've seen you in something. I said, no, that can't be it. That she can't be. My
apparently
face.
her.
Yes,
appearance
yes,
is
you have.
more-
Yes, you may or may not. You may or may not have seen her.
Yeah.
You may or may not have seen her on a certain hub.
Well, I have. She's in my top 10. And I was like, nah,
Oh wow.
nah, that ain't my girl. That's my girl. And then I was like, pink snaps. I mean, I'm here for it. I think the last
Yeah, and
person to do
even
it
if she doesn't, and
wasn't
yeah,
Evan.
for the small scenes that she's in, she's fantastic. She plays that really like nice subtle comic relief.
Yeah.
Like whenever Cal goes over to Fez's house and she just gives that beat. So do like you and your son fuck people together?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very much, very Francine from American Dad. I did like her. I did like her very much. I think, if they ever make a live action American Dad, I think Patrick Warburton and her would make a good Francine and Stan. I think they'd make a really good, she was kind of good and very sad ending for Ashtray. That was kind of good there. That was kind of really sad ending there. So last two characters that we want to go around and wrap this up: Maddie and Jules.
Queen Maddie.
Queen Maddie.
Maddie was always the girl. Who
Yeah,
acted
Maddie.
in high school. Funny enough.
Yeah. What did you think about Maddie and Jules there, Nick?
I think with at least with the character Maddie, it's very easy to write her off as just the shallow, mean, popular. But the more time that you spend with her, and credit to Alexa Demi's performance, the more you end up sympathizing with her, and the fact that she has just is just stuck in this constant cycle of this abusive relationship that she is in with Nate, and then towards the later half of season 2, you get to spend more time with her outside of that, in interaction with Minka Kelly as this wealthy woman that she's babysitting for, and finally, in some way, when she is talking to Cassie about saying that, hey, this is just the beginning, it feels almost cathartic, because it's almost, I read it as her thinking that I'm free now. And you have interactions with characters that we didn't get to see. Kat, and giving her that speech of like, hey, don't feel bad trying to force yourself to feel something you're not supposed to. Or even her small interaction with Lexi play episode. She is incredible on the show. She might be one of the best characters on the show. Also, beat her ass, Maddie. She was the exact kind of girl that was in high school and that I was also terrified of.
Jena, what kind of your thoughts there on? Oh, actually, Nick, you didn't talk about Jules. What do you think about Jules?
Oh, Jules. Yeah, Jules. She's a very, very odd character. I think Hunter Schafer. She is incredible in this role. I think a lot of the emotional weight of the first season is basically placed on her shoulder. And towards the end of season 2, where the first season, it is kind of like this will they, won't they, are they together or not Rue. In season 2, they're full on dating, and you get the struggles of that and this heartbreaking betrayal when Jules does confess to fuck, I'm out of breath. Does confess to Rue's mom about the fact that Rue relapsed. And you get to see so much of that interaction. The only element I did not like with Jules was that whole dynamic with Elliot in the second season.
Why not?
That was the only thing that I didn't like. I just thought it comes out of nowhere.
Okay. Jena?
I actually liked season 2 explored more of the characters' backstories, and I love Maddie's, especially with the pageant. I thought that shit was hilarious. But I also, again, like how they point out how their parents' actions really do like change the course of these kids' personalities and how it really did shape them. And I'm glad they highlight that because I feel like parents really need to understand that, like, yes, you have a massive impact on your child's like entire mental state, which you think would be understood by now, but parents. But Maddie, I love Maddie. Maddie is me right now. I don't want to work. For what, bitch? When I could be sitting up here rich and not doing shit. Girl, I fell in love with doing nothing too. I was happy to pan around. I was hoping that maybe we would understand as a fucking society that we shouldn't have to do shit to be able to enjoy life. I fucks with Maddie, you know what I mean? And I hope Maddie in season 3 becomes like this huge social media influencer who gains like millions of followers, and then that'll be a counter for Kat. I think that would be dope to explore. But I like, out of all the characters, Maddie is the most honest about who she is. Her self-awareness is kind of a counter to Rue's self-awareness, where it's not so critical, but it really is just transparent and honest. And she's about that fucking life. And although Maddie has a lot to learn, there's a odd humility with Maddie. You know what I mean? Because she is so honest, because she is so transparent, because she is so straightforward. I mean, I was like, girl, you a Sagittarius on the low? Because that foot in the mouth disease, there ain't no filter. Like, what comes in comes out. And her comfortability with her sexuality and just doing what the fuck she want to do. Like, all these things, ironically, will be told to her later on. What she doesn't know is not a proper woman. And I enjoyed watching Maddie because it reminded me that you really can be yourself and do you. And that type of personality is something that we all try to get back to when we become adults. Because when you get older, you think, well, maybe I shouldn't have been so promiscuous. Well, maybe I should, tame this or tame that. And Maddie is the you right before, you start entering your adult years and kind of start, tailoring and taming and pulling back and things like that. So I really enjoyed Maddie. Maddie is equally as problematic. Bitch is crazy. Period. Okay? Like,
100%, yeah.
Scorpio vibe.
She is terrifying.
She's fucking crazy. She's nuts.
She's scary.
Yeah, she reminds me a lot. Like, I be talking about poisoning people and ways to kill people where I don't get caught. So I feel it. But at the end of the day, I really like that they just didn't make her no character. And I like that she really did beat Cassie's ass because Cassie needed her ass beat. But I also like the fact that she didn't necessarily toss her to the side. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's not going to be the healthiest relationship. But I do like the fact that she is like, girl, like, at the end of the day, you're doing this for some dick and the dick ain't worth it. I've been there. You know what I mean? Like, I've been where you are. So I'm hoping that Maddie and Cassie's relationship will end up being, rectified because Cassie will start to be vulnerable with Maddie and open up, and Maddie will be like, I don't want this to happen to you like how it happened to me. I hope they keep the intelligence of Maddie when it comes to Nate and other abusive, toxic men, where she kind of is like, I'm not with that shit. You know what I mean? And they don't pull a cat with Maddie, because that would be really easy to do. But I love her. Jules, top tier character of the show. I think Jules has the most interesting storyline. Jules is absolutely beautiful. I can see why Rue fell in love with Jules. I would have.
I can
If
see
I was
why Rue. I can see why Rue, Elliot, and Dominic Fike in real life.
man, that was my teenage crush. You know, if I was teen Jena, I would have married Jules. Honestly, I also like how in the end of season 2, it's Rue that leaves Jules, and in season 1, it was Jules that left Rue. I thought that was a nice little reversal there. Um, I also like the fact that it didn't. Jules' character wasn't about their transness, like oh they're trans, they're trans, they're trans. You know?
It's just a matter of fact thing.
Exactly, and I feel like out of a lot of portrayals of trans characters in media, this is the best I've seen so far. Um, and I really appreciate the care that has been given to this character, how this character has been written. I like the realness of this character because, again, we don't like to talk about teenagers having sex with grown male adults, but guess what? It happens. It happens a lot.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of that I think is I think the best use of Jules was in the second Euphoria special episode, the one where it is her with her counselor. And I think one note seems like the wrong word to use to describe Shaver's, but I think that special episode had allowed her to stretch more dramatically than she was given a chance to in any of any of the 2 seasons of Euphoria.
So do you think?
And I'll say this real fast too. Again, what people won't also put on the spectrum is Jules and Cassie. They're on different spectrums when it comes to romanticizing, over romanticizing. There's an actual psychological term for it. It's not magical thinking.
It's
when you
I think it's like
over idealize.
It's romanticizing the idea.
Yeah, like
and more about falling in love with the idea of being in love versus like actually liking or caring about the person you're with.
Yeah, it's like there's this feeling that you get, but there's a specific word for it where it's like you fall in love with the feeling of falling in love, but you don't really look at the red flags. And with Cassie, it's a naivete, right? Like how Reese talked about how she walks into her own traps. You know what I mean? Like, girl, come on. So Jules doesn't lack that intelligence. It's not a naivete, but it definitely is a romanticism and idealization because she's highly artistic and highly just eclectic, and her mind is just so just like you just want to you just want to sit in there all day. But it's also just like you're also selling yourself short. Maybe not in the way that Cassie is with naivete, but you're not necessarily. But yeah, she does walk into her own traps. You know what I mean? Being recorded. You know what I mean? Like you know what you're doing when you're dealing with these older men. So it's just like it was interesting to see that play out on a different spectrum. You know what I mean?
I have a question for you. Also, thank you, by the way, Cal, for the 100 bits, man. Thank you, by the way. Cal, he does a lot with mental health.
Buddy.
Does a lot with mental health there. Does mental health streams. He should go to Euphoria High, the fictional Euphoria High School. They definitely need him there. So
he can be the one teacher that actually shows up to school.
Yeah, I could see Cal as like the counselor, you know what I mean? School counselor. I could see him there. I was going to ask you, so she is on these, she's on Grindr, which is a gay dating app. Which
it's a gay dating.
Yeah.
Well, dating app seems like the wrong word. It's a hookup app.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is.
And so I was curious, it's like, because I think she's hooking up with these different men to feel more feminine, to feel more desired as a woman, but she's on the app that's for more like gay kind of hookups. So like, why wouldn't she just be on like regular Tinder? I was just kind of like curious, is like, why would she be on Grindr instead of like maybe like Tinder instead of something like that?
Well, number one, safety. Trans women are still killed at a higher rate. Period. And if
the rate of murder for like trans.
Yeah, because people still can't deal with the fact that these are still women. So if you're a guy and you're
Mhm.
attracted to Jules, it's because you like women. You know what I mean? So it doesn't make you gay. It still makes you
Yeah,
straight.
and
But anyway,
and they even bring it,
but
and they even bring it up, with her backstory episode of flashbacks of like various hookups, and it was always like older married men that would always like, I'm not gay, but
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's technically you're not because Jules is a
she is a
woman.
woman.
So it's one of those things where, as someone who isn't traditionally trans, I'm of the old school gay community where I didn't have access to money and hormones and things of that nature. We just had to deal with what we had. Um, it's less about validation of femininity and more of just like role playing. Honestly, it's kind of this idea of it's a fetish almost. I again, ironically enough, there's a fetishization on both sides that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough in the community, in my community, where it's like you want to have sex with this person who seems like the traditional all American. You know what I mean? It's a secret kind of like, yeah, this clean cut guy, but behind doors, I'm what you really desire. It's part power play to some degree, and it's also a money thing. There's definitely money being transacted there, and it's also just clientele. You have more clientele on Grinder because actually more DL men go on Grinder. They're not going to go on Tinder where they can get doxxed by their friends, by their wives. They're going to go on fucking Grinder. So it's one of those moments where it's more so just about just the culture itself and just where you go. Like if Craigslist was still a thing, it would be on Craigslist. So it's more so just about. I don't think it's necessarily. I don't think Jules needs any form of validation in that arena, especially because Jules is probably pan, like myself. Like because Jules also likes women and non-binary folk. So I think in that situation, it really is just like a thing where you're getting paid for it. And it's almost like a fetish, like no different than doms or bulls, you know what I mean? But again,
What's a bull? I don't know what the hell that is. What's a bull?
we're not gonna do this.
Bro, do you seriously not know what a bull
out here
is?
I don't
explaining
know,
sex
bro.
education to kids. A bull is a form of sexual identity in the fetish community, where it is a highly aggressive and over masculinized man. They typically,
Okay.
like a dom is,
It-
yeah. That's. I'm just gonna leave it there, kids.
Okay.
It's just,
All right.
Kids, talk to your parents about what a dom or a bull is. That'd be fun.
Let me read this real quick. 'Cause Chill is going off in the chat. Let me.
Oh my God, Reese! What did I start, Reese? What did I start?
What is Chill going off? Chill says.
She's just
Let me read this. So Chill,
here's the tea.
Chill's first comment is, "I'm Cassie in the nighttime." Then it's Josh's Rue in the daytime. Then Chill, in reference to the Grinder app, he was like, "It's a rainbow."
Talking about Grinder. It's a rainbow app. Nah, she was thoughting. It's
Then
like you thought while you young. Jules like Terry guys. Jules is all women. LOL, daddy.
no, he said no. Jules is all women.
Grinder hoeing.
Lil Daddy. He said Lil Daddy. Jules is all women. Lil Daddy. Grinder hoeing. Jules and Rue never got down. No, they had sex in this.
They did once. They did twice, as far as I can remember. And the low rent Paul Walker didn't get that 3.
I don't think that dude looked like Paul Walker, but okay. I think he's talking about Elliot.
I was like,
Elliot. I wanted Paul Walker.
yeah, I think he's talking about Elliot.
That
That dude didn't look like Paul Walker.
Y'all gonna put some respect on Paul Walker's fine ass. Get the fuck out of here.
Kids watch Euphoria is good for you. Okay.
Yes, it is. It is.
Reese, what did you think about Maddie and Jules?
I'll start with Jules since we're on the topic of her. I think Jules has such a sweetness, but she also has such audacity at the same time. like I think she leads with her sweetness a lot, but when it comes to serving her own interests, I think she's the type of person who will step over someone to satisfy whatever it is she's looking to do. And I think a lot of people overlook that with Jules, which I think is really interesting, and I think it's a great testament to the writing of this character because, like you guys mentioned before, it's good that her being trans is not the be all end all of her character. It's there, but there's so many other facets to who she is, and she's allowed to make mistakes. She's allowed to, not be this sweet angelic person all the time. She's allowed to have many parts of her personality and display that like a normal teenager would, which is great. I think so many times when we're trying to integrate diversity into these roles, there's a tendency to either raise them up or, you know, punch down on them, and there's not a whole lot of nuance in between. Whereas I think with Jules, you see a lot of that nuance where she's a flawed character. She's really sweet, but she also has her certain explorations and her certain mentalities about things that really aren't that constructive and are often dangerous for
Yes.
her and for her friends. So I think it's great that they allowed her to just have so many facets to her character. Um, Other than that, like I don't have a whole lot to say about Jules. I do like her, but I wouldn't say she's like my favorite character by any means. But I do think she's a really important character to have, and the amount of care and attention that was taken in portraying her in a way that was respectful, I think was is really good. Maddie, though, Queen Maddie, I love her. She's my favorite. Maddie, I think she doesn't get the. I think people kind of overlook Maddie because she is way smarter than she's given credit for. She has this persona that she keeps up, like she's tough, she doesn't take no shit. But at the same time, I think she is very aware of people around her. I think she's very aware of herself. She's very self-assured. The only kind of downfall, I think, when it comes to her is her relationship with Nate, in that that's the only Nate is the only person with whom she questions herself. And I think that's interesting to see because from the outside looking in, you look at Maddie and you think she's infallible. You think no one can challenge her, no one step into her, and in a way that's true. But Maddie also wants to be loved just as much as Cassie is said to want to be loved. I think Maddie wants it as well. And I think a lot of her toughness is a defense mechanism. I think she is scared to be vulnerable because she sees that as weakness almost. And then when you look at the relationship between her parents and her dad being basically useless, I think she's the type of person who, like, she wants someone who is her equal. She wants someone who is as strong and assertive as she is, and she sees that in Nate. And at the same time, she overlooks a lot of his red flags. Nate is the only person who could quote unquote humble her, I guess, which is abusive on his part, obviously. But it's sad that it takes him abusing her for her to kind of wake up and remember who she is. And like that whole scene with him holding a gun to her head, I was like, first of all, he would have been dead. If my family ever found out about any of that, he wouldn't be walking. But that's just my family, and I feel like she maybe doesn't have as much of a support system to kind of turn to when things like that happen. She keeps everything inside because if she comes out with it, then it betrays the persona that she puts forth. It betrays who Maddie is as a person, because that would suggest that she had a moment of weakness and sometimes things don't work out for her. So I think with Nate moving on to Cassie, it's almost like it's showing her like, hey, you were never wrong in this. Well, that's not entirely true. She's has her faults too, but ultimately, like, her abuse is not her fault. Like,
Yeah.
being vulnerable is not a weakness. And it's kind of acting as a way for her to see Nate for who he is, because a lot of the red flags that she ignored are now on full display. and she sees how Cassie is kind of assuming her strong persona that she puts on, and it's basically reinforcing to her that she's someone who people put on a pedestal almost. And Cassie
Mhm.
feels like she has to change so much of herself in order to be a cheap imitation of her.
Mhm.
And in a way, it's showing her worth. Like that's kind of a roundabout way of her figuring out that she actually has worth and has value as a person, and she's so much more than who her friends or who her boyfriend is. Like she is a strong, amazing person in and of herself, and there's so many different parts of her that are valid. Like she doesn't need to, I guess, put on this huge front that big bad Maddie, where she's a whole person herself. She has vulnerabilities. She has feelings too, and I think with this whole situation playing out as it is, it's really an indication to her that it's okay to kind of step into that. And then also, I'm glad she beat Cassie's ass.
Um, let's see. Chill, he going off again. Let's see what Chill is here. He is Paul
Oh,
Walker. Maddie
Nate,
is
the
a
type to Nate. Yeah, Maddie can take my OnlyFans money really from French in it. Nate, the type to call you while it's raining and say, "I'm fighting demons."
um, if Maddie was in Chicago, she'd be a gangbanger. Jules
Yeah,
had
Maddie looked like she put Blaze in her mouth.
Yeah.
Jules had the best jokes this season and the best reactions. Jules was our telescope this season. Things revolved around Jules more on season one. I'm sorry, I loved Euphoria this season. We need no Nate slander.
We
Um,
need lots of Nate slander.
We need
Matt,
all
I
of the
didn't
Nate
hear it.
slander.
Nate
Nate can
deserves
get
all
all
the
the
smoke.
slander. Oh,
Maddie really from the
Because
trenches. I seen it. Nate find Jesus and Cassie. What the fuck? Uh,
yeah. Watch
Maddie,
that be his character arc. Watch it end up being some like super like Christian weirdo, and like he ends up having a double life. Watch.
It becomes fucking Joel Osteen.
Yeah,
oh,
facts. Let's
Maddie,
talk about it.
Maddie made Nate feel like Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez and Jingly. Okay.
Jiggly.
Okay.
You mean Geely?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he meant jingly, but he put jiggly. He didn't know that.
jiggly.
Jiggly.
Yeah.
Let's get jiggly with it, guys.
Yeah. So even though this show, like Jenna said, it kind of. So do you all are in agreement? The show kind of normalizes teenage sex and kind of things like that, or in agreement
I
on
mean,
that?
teenage sex is already normal.
Already normalized, yeah.
It's like a normal thing that I just American culture we refuse to talk about.
Do you think it glorifies that on the show, and then people watching the show kind of are kind of that's the main reason you think, or no?
Porn exists.
I don't think it's glorification at all, though. I think it shows both sides of the coin. Like what I mentioned with Rue before, in that there are scenes where it's showing what she's experiencing when she's on drugs, which lends context to why she's so addicted to it, because it gives her an escape, it gives her a good feeling away from what she has to do with in her waking life or in her real life, really. And then with all the sex and the drugs and the parties and whatnot, it's just kind of speaking to like, yes, this is what a lot of teenagers lifestyles look like. I don't think it's necessarily a glorification, but it's just lending attention to the fact that this is something that a lot of people shy away from talking about, and we're just presenting it on the screen and we're having a conversation about it because this is what happens, and there's no need really to shy away from discussing it, because I feel like so much of it would be prevented if there was a safe space to actually sit down and talk to kids about these things. But like if they still want to party and whatnot, that's fine, but at least give them the tools to do it safely. At least let them figure out how to identify red flags and give them the tools to do that effectively. I think not talking about it is more destructive than quote unquote glorifying it on screen when that's not the case.
So, final ratings, all right, for the show. Nick?
Season 2.
I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah, me. I think season 1 is a 2. Season 2, I think I have a lot of issues with. I think season 2 is much more clunky. It's less focused, but there are still moments where I think the show is legitimately great. But it's still, I think, at least with season 2, I think it's such a different show in terms of its tone and its execution that it doesn't feel like the same show anymore. It feels like it is dancing that fine line into stuff like Riverdale. But however, I think it's like, even if it does, I think it's on the same level of Riverdale when it was at peak, when it was like still fun and entertaining to watch. I still think both seasons are a solid tune in. Season 2 much less so. First.
Reese?
Season 2, I would put at 7.5 out of 10. Sorry, I still don't know what you guys' ratings. 7.5 out of 10 for season 2 versus season 1, which I would have given a 9. I just feel like season 1, there's so much more care and attention to the development of the characters and who they are as people. Or season 2, like I said, with Kat, there was such a big trail of who that character was with her breakup with Ethan. There was barely any use of certain characters, like McKay came in for whatever reason in that one episode, like he didn't need to be there. There's just kind of a lot of filler that didn't need to be there as well, and certain characters just not sticking to who they were developed to be. For me, just like the play was a good little bright spot of levity, but it also kind of borderline on campiness, which is not the overall tone of the show. So kind of flip-flop for me as far as tonal consistency. Overall, I think you definitely should still tune into it. It's like a really good show just in general with, cinematography, writing for the most part, aside from what I mentioned with Kat. And just kind of delving into subjects that are usually kind of difficult to talk about, but I think there's more of a willingness to really tackle these subjects and do so in a way that's respectful and really educational as well. So yeah, 7.5 out of 10 for this season.
Jena?
Yeah. I concur, Reese. I concur. I season 1 was one of those things where I cannot rewatch it. Funny enough, as good as it is. Season 2 is rewatchability is I can rewatch this season, but that's because there is a level of disconnect within just the art of filmmaking and TV making that's a lot more apparent in this season. But it also makes it easier to watch. And yeah, I don't know. Season 1 really left a really big impression on me on so many levels that season 2, I have to agree, is just kind of, I don't know. It's more than just a difference in tone. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I just felt like, I don't know. It didn't feel like a filler season. It definitely wasn't a season that was made to really get you to watch the show. It basically was kind of like, hey, you either was on board with season 1 and this is where we're going, or you wasn't. I would definitely say this is something you have to watch season 1 first and then watch season 2. Definitely watch the specials in between. I think that adds a lot more substance to Euphoria as a whole. And I am looking forward to how they're going to wrap up these storylines. They didn't write themselves into a corner. They didn't try to do anything stupid, really. It was just like, it seems like a lot of the personal issues outside of the show affected how this show was developed as a whole. And you can see it. I feel like there was some discord in the writers' room. There was some discord with what the director wanted. Mm-hmm. You can tell there's a little bit, not a lot of unified consistency in what the folks were. I think for this.
I think with the first season, it was a case where, even though Sam Levinson is created as a writer and director on most of the episodes, there was still like there was still a lot more people involved to like kind of curb Levinson's lesser instincts as a writer. And this one, it was all him. He's the sole credited writer. He's the sole credited director on all 8 episodes of this season.
Yeah. It's interesting because you would think it would be more cohesive, but hey, sometimes
and I think Levinson is one of those writers that he's a great idea man, and he has a lot of great concepts that he likes to play with, but he needs more people around him to keep him focused.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I'm glad you actually brought that up, Nick, because that's how it kind of felt. But yeah, I agree. I would give it another.
It's why even though I think the performances are good in that movie he did for Malcolm, I still think that.
He did do that. Thank you. Yes, that was a really good film. Yeah, he's good at the relationship dynamics between characters. That's actually really hard to do as a screenwriter, and to have the dialogue not be cringy or not relatable. I don't think
he's also a screenwriter on that Amazon movie with Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas, that Deep Water. Where it's Ana de Armas hoeing out, which I cannot wait for personal reasons.
It's on Hulu already.
Yeah.
So
my review, I think we're going to probably review that Friday or Saturday. We're probably going to review that.
Ooh, I might.
Alrighty.
But yeah, I definitely agree. Reese 7 out of 10, 7.5 out of 10 for me. Definitely was. It's a pretty good show. It's a solid show for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's check back on what's Chill talking about here. Let's see.
More Lil Meech.
I don't even know what that means. I think he's talking about
the show needed a more Lil Meech.
I think he's talking about maybe penis. I think he said maybe penis. I think that's what he's talking about.
Okay, it's a little too late
for this. Penis?
I think that I don't know what Lil Meech is, but I don't know.
You're talking about
Lil Meech is a rapper.
Oh, Lil Meech. Oh. Okay. Oh, okay. How the hell, that's a rapper? Oh, okay.
I believe so. You said Big Meech is a rapper, but I think he was being facetious.
Oh, okay.
I think like he's an actor.
Chill. Yeah, Chill just commented, Nick found a movie for the Spank Bank.
I'm weak.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think I see why people are obsessed with the show. It's got good drama in it. You know, it has that elements, especially, you know, season 2, Maddie versus Cassie, things like that, where she bopped her ass on the locker, and that was satisfying. And
let it bring her ass.
And then, you know, the scene where Fez beat up Nate and things like that. You know, I mean, you know, you do have a lot of those like big moments. And I think it's really good performances all around from everybody in the cast. I think they do a good job at it. I don't think there's any real weak link in the show. I think they play the roles very well. And these shows, they really use, I mean, I feel like Sam Levinson gets his time to really do what he wants to do. I have heard things about on the set issues as far as like crew working really a lot of hours, like 18+ hour days and things like that on the set, and with no clear direction. Like they're just kind of on the set, just, you know, hanging around and working these long hours, and they're not even shooting anything or and they're not even done shooting. So I have heard that and some of the stuff like that. But, you know, I do think the show's got some really beautiful shots. I don't think it really glorifies drugs. I think, you know, it really shows the harsh reality of kind of those things, especially when you see that scene when Zendaya, she can't even open a Jolly Rancher. I mean, it's like that she's fighting for her life trying to open just a simple Jolly Rancher. You know what I mean? I mean, like, Jesus Christ.
That entire scene, I was just flashing back to that R. Kelly interview. Y'all kill me with this shit.
Yeah, I mean, she was really just fighting for her life. I mean, Jesus Christ.
She was struggling.
Yeah, her mom is just looking at her like, oh my God, like Jesus. Which is heartbreaking. Like, a lot of stuff. Hell? And the mother, she does a really great job too. I think the mother too does a really good job in this show.
Yeah, and one of the few complaints I have for this season, not enough Coleman Domingo.
Yeah,
because every single episode he is in, every single episode it went from, a 7 out of 10 to like a 9 out of 10 episode.
You know, when he has those interactions with her, it's always really great, always really stellar. Yeah, I thought that was really great. Yeah. So yeah, I'd be kind of on the same thing. I'd get maybe a strong tune in for this. I'm kind of struggling because it's like the demographic that this show is about, whether I think they should watch it. It's tough to say. I mean, there's a lot of good, strong themes in this show that I don't know. It's tough to say, but I do think it is.
I mean, in terms of the thematic content, I think I kind of put this in the same camp as Big Mouth, where I think both shows kind of touch on these very sensitive subjects. Here more so with like addiction, with empathy, with talking about cycles of abuse, whereas Big Mouth, it's more talking about just like normal sex education that we're not getting in public schools. And And I think both of these shows kind of need to be watched by like the 16, 17-year-old demographic.
Okay. Chill said no. Lil Meech is not a rapper. He's an actor. He's in the 50 Cent show. Okay.
Yeah, but Big Meech is.
Okay.
I think Big Meech's daddy or somebody. And I believe ain't that a rapper?
Oh, chill! You would know why I'm comparing it to Big Mouth if you listened.
Yeah, he said Big Mouth is trash.
The little and the big.
Hey, you like the Avengers game? You know.
There's too many characters in the black community with these goofy ass names.
No. Thank you so much, Jena, and thank you so much, Reese, for coming on.
Thank you.
That was a long discussion about Euphoria. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
I was looking at the clock like, hey, my Taco Bell is on the way. I gotta go.
Yeah, I know you gotta take a nap, everything like that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.